Former Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, Army, told Breitbart News that China uses technology and finance as tools to globally project its communist ideology. McCotter described China's geopolitical ambition as an existential threat to America and the border West, offering his remarks on Tuesday's edition of SiriusXM's Breitbart News Tonight. Breitbart News senior editor-at-large Rebecca Mansour asked McCotter about recent developments related to China's giant telecommunications company Huawei. Huawei CFO, Ming Wanzhou, was released on bail by a Canadian court on Tuesday after being arrested on Saturday in Vancouver, Canada. McCotter, who was a vocal critic of Huawei during his time in Congress, described the telecommunications company as an arm of the Chinese state. He warned of the threat of Chinese surveillance of Americans via integration of Huawei technology with U.S. telecommunications infrastructure. Communism is antithetical to the progression of human nature, and the prosperity and salubriousness of human nature, stated McCotter. When you understood that the People's Liberation Army's former general founded Huawei, and you understood what they were up to, if you understood the influence and operations run by people like Ceausescu and his regime, you understood what Huawei was. McCotter continued, Huawei is not a private entity, because communist ideology does not allow it to be a private entity. Everything is owned by the state, and you're allowed to use it at their leisure, at their whim. So these are front groups. These are not separate organizations. So they are going to be used to get into the technology of the West, and those countries of democracy. That's what we've seen, and what you've seen reports from intelligence organizations from the US and other democracies talking about Huawei, and banning them from utilization within their 5G networks and elsewhere because of the fear that they will be then used to spy on, not just our government, but on private citizens, as well. McCotter added, remember, the Chinese Liberation Army, the PLA, they have a division of cyber warfare, and so this is something that has been long planned, and it's just a progression. From the time of about 2007, it goes way back, even before then, this was a long-term plan, much like using their mercantilist trade policies to undercut American manufacturing. So when you look at it, it's been part of an overall comprehensive effort. McCotter said, we know we don't like domestic spying here in the United States, but my God, look what the Chinese Communist government does to its own people. Do you want that organization, or any entity associated with them or under their direction and influence, to have access to your private information? Huawei's bids for infrastructure development contracts with U.S. and Western telecommunications service providers will enable Chinese surveillance of governments and citizens, said McCotter. They are here for no good reason, he declared. They are not here just to make a profit, send it back, and pay the taxes. That's not what they're here for. They have laws over there that they are required to engage in potentially offensive cyber operations against their customers, which would be people in the United States. This is why places like New Zealand, and the US banned them. McCotter went on, Huawei cannot have that type of access to our market, and consumers because they will use it for their legitimate purposes. Remember, this is not about the Chinese people. This is about the Chinese government, the 70 million, or so, that rules a country of 1.6 billion people who want to be free and want to realize their place in the community of nations, and they're not being allowed to buy the junta that's run the country since Mao. Mansour invited McCotter's analysis of another Chinese telecommunication company ZTE and its violation of U.S. sanctions. McCotter described Huawei and ZTE as parts of the Chinese state's ambition to displace global American dominance and Western liberal democracy. They're busy building communism in one country by 2025. Think about that. This is Stalin building socialism in one country with industrialization, except they're doing it with technology and finance. It's the same thing. McCotter said, you want to know what would make a whole lot of people rich? If China lost that regime and became free. Imagine the entrepreneurial ability and the good that it would do, not only to the Chinese people, but the entire world, to see the rise with freedom and prosperity and the rule of law and engage with other people. Imagine what it would be if they were gone.